Hi, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to be able to stay here for a long time and play music and do those things that we normally do. Um, that was a really terrible hearing, in my opinion. Hey, Ceresia, that was a terrible hearing. The Bryan Kohberger plea change hearing. It was there's a lot. There's a lot. So first of all, the judge is upset because people made their frustration known, that people were incensed and very angry about the way the families of these victims have been treated throughout this process. And it wasn't the judge who mistreated these families and denied them what is lawful in the eyes of Idaho law. It wasn't the judge that denied them that. It was this prosecution, Bill Thompson, his office. And, people were furious. Lots of people were furious. And so, to reiterate, the letters that we sent to Bill Thompson's office and carbon copied the judge, the clerk of court, and the judge's office, those were respectful letters that used Idaho state law. Now, clearly, those letters did not upset the judge. Clearly, they said that there was enough, that it was enough contact that it interrupted the office's abilities to just work in general. We didn't have even close to that amount of letters that were sent. And there was no phone number that was put out to call them or anything like that. So I took issue with the way that the judge handled this. I have no idea what the offices were like, and I don't know if it was one of those situations where there were hundreds of phone calls. I don't know it, and frankly I don't want to know. But the truth is, according to Idaho state law, Bill Thompson violated these families' rights. Bill Thompson broke Idaho state law. Like I can't absolutely. And the judge can get up there and, he did a little like, I guess you could say a civic lesson on, separation of powers and all that. And I don't have any trouble with that. There was never any question, but it's certainly a question. It is an actual true condition that, according to Idaho state law, this judge absolutely had the power to say, I'm not sure that this plea deal has been handled properly. And it is absolutely appropriate to give these families a week to get things in order should they want to respond legally within the rights that are afforded them by Idaho state law. And so I think the judge was really disingenuous about saying that his hands were tied and he didn't have any choice. No, that is just simply not true. So then, okay, so that was, look, the judge is frustrated. He's a human being first. I get that. And I also understand that Bill Thompson is under an incredible amount of pressure, as seen through his own tears, correct? You kind of almost get the feeling that they knew they were completely in the wrong. It just looks like a bunch of guilt floating around that courtroom to me. I don't mean guilt that anyone else knew about these murders or that it was someone other than Kohberger. Kohberger's the dude. I've always thought he was the dude. He's the one, okay? The guilt, kind of guilt that I'm talking about, though, is that for whatever reason, when you give people so much power that they think they're God, just like Beverly Cannoni in Massachusetts, when you put people in a position that they believe that their powers are unchecked by anyone, then I think you get bad things happen. I think bad things happen, like, for example, oh gosh, well, I've got this opportunity for such a great family vacation starting, August the 25th, but I'm not going to be able to go be with my family because I've got to do the Bryan Kohberger trial. But if we could get him to plead guilty, then I'd be able to go on vacation. Now, I don't mean to minimize that, saying that is what happened. Please don't. That is not what I mean. What I'm trying to put forth the idea that prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, they're people. They're people above and beyond their jobs. They have a lot of other interests related to family needs, children, let's say careers. And maybe you let those influences cause you to maybe not follow the law of the land, like not including the families in the negotiations for a plea agreement as is stated in the Idaho law. That is 100% what our letter said. These families, according to your laws, they had some entitlement. And the fact that you guys are rushing this, you're stripping them of their legal protections. And the judge addressed that. Oh, well, the reason we had to hurry up and do it today is because we had all these other things that we had to do. Bullshit. That is the law, Judge Hippler. Nobody said that you had to rule a certain way or tell Bill Thompson what to do. That is not, well, I mean, I don't know what other people said. The letter was, these families have legal entitlement, legal protection. The process that Bill Thompson took stripped them of those legal rights. And as the judge, you do have the ability to postpone this plea agreement until the families can get their ducks in order with their own attorneys. That's what it said. And when you said, oh, but we had to hurry. We had to hurry and do this because we had all these things going on. Then you stepped right in line behind Bill Thompson and Brett Payne to continue the victimization of these four families. And then you do have the law tube, quotation marks, you do have the law tube creators who absolutely have vested interest in keeping these trials online, public display, letting the trials, be live streamed or coming through court TV or whatever, because that's how they're making their living. And they don't want to start making judges mad. And then the judge is saying, nope, no more cameras in the courtroom. They don't want that. So So then if you're making your living off of these streamed court hearings and such, if that's how you're making your millions, you're not going to stand up for four families. You're not going to stand up and cut the nose off to spite your face and say, this is wrong. Y'all shouldn't do this. You should do it right. You should follow the letter of the law. So I'm not even bothered by that. I don't care. And every single thing Peter Tragus said the other night is true. You won't have any guarantees. If you go to trial, of course, you may not win. And then you're going to have years and years and years of appeals. And you probably would never get the death penalty anyway. I get it. I don't take issue with that. I agree with every single thing you've said. But I'm going to say it again as someone who does not make my living off of court TV or live stream trials, who does not depend on judges liking me and being happy with the way that I fall in line and do what I'm directed to do. I don't have to talk like that. I have a real job out in the world. I can go make my money independent of whatever my opinions might be. And the reality is, these four families were stripped of the rights that they are given by the Idaho law. And the judge jumped on the bandwagon with Brett Payne and Bill Thompson to continue that by saying, oh, we better have our hearing within 36 hours. We wouldn't want anyone to get some legal authority in here. So I will stand on integrity. I will stand up for what I know is fact. And it doesn't affect me if they pull this out from underneath us and say, no more live streaming, no more court TV. Okay, I'm sorry. But aren't we supposed to be law-abiding people? Aren't we supposed to be comforted by laws? Aren't laws there to protect us? Not only as guidelines for us to know how we should behave, but more importantly, to protect us when people do not behave. So I just see four families that have been battered and bruised by the system. I see four families that have been completely disregarded as they try to maneuver this nightmare where their child was slaughtered, and they believe they're supposed to be able to be on the team with the prosecution, and this prosecution's office treated them like the enemy from day one. Even today, they are continuing the gag order. What are they hiding? What is this group of law enforcement people? What are they hiding? What are they doing? I can't understand this. They got their plea. He said he's guilty, all counts. Why continue to tell these families to shut up and sit down? Why continue to rob them of their voice? It's very strange to me. But there were other strange things at play in the courtroom today. If you look, that's Bill Thompson, of course, standing up, the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney's office. He's standing up. If you look to your right, not Bill's right, but Bill's left, your right, look over his shoulder. See that bald guy sitting back behind him, the little small guy? That is Brett Payne. And Brett Payne, back in April or May, mysteriously stopped working for the police department. That's your lead investigator in this case. He's the lead investigator. But he took another job. He stopped working as a police law enforcement officer. He's no longer a law enforcement officer. He quit in the middle of what would be the worst, most horrible crime, the biggest investigation in the history of this particular area of the country. He just quit so that he could go to work for the university. The same university that tore the house down. The university that destroyed evidence with the blessing of Ann Taylor and Bill Thompson. I mean, this county is operating like a finely tuned, well-oiled machine. Defense works great with the prosecution. They're helping each other with the law enforcement to destroy evidence. It's great. It's unbelievable, unlike anything I've ever seen. Super. Being facetious. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that comes about, but it's fact. And that Bill Thompson deputized Brett Payne so that, you know, when he got up on the stand during this trial to testify, he wouldn't exactly be held to the ethical legal mandates of an active law enforcement officer. Huh, that's weird. How did that happen? I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. And I cannot imagine what kind of job he's doing for the university, but it apparently pays really well. And he left his position as lead investigator as they were preparing for the trial of the century. If this sounds particularly strange to anyone, put a 1. It's very strange. St. Elmo's Fire says that there were 3 families that wanted the plea deal. I don't know. I mean, that could be true, St. Elmo. I don't know that. I don't know. That's not what Steve Goncalves said. Steve Goncalves said that the majority, when it came to the group of 4 parents, the majority did not want the plea deal. But I don't know. I don't know that to be true. He said that on a public platform. So I don't know. I don't know that to be true. But now, if that is true, if it is true that 3 families out of the 4 were in support of the plea deal and that they did want to go forward with the plea deal, then I don't think that the issue is so pressing, right? I do think because there were so many victims, I think you do have to sort of take a democracy type approach to making that determination. Not that, and please don't misunderstand me, not that I think that the victims' families, that they get to determine whether there's going to be a plea deal or not. The complaint is that they should have been included. I'm talking about according to Idaho state law, not my opinion. It's not like what I think. It's according to Idaho state law. They absolutely should have been included the first time that the offer was made, the counter offers, the provisions of the plea. They should have been included like they were part of the team with the prosecution. That's the way the law is written. Xana's father made a statement, and he is not in favor of the plea either. He is outraged. Well, there you go, Deborah. So that's 2. We're at least at 50%. That's what they said. Watch AB special where Ethan's family were interviewed. Maddie's father also spoke out. Yeah, so you're saying that Maddie Mogan's family wanted the plea deal? Weird. It's so weird. Okay, well, I mean, maybe it's at 50%, okay? I have no idea about the facts, and so Xana's father. Okay, so that's not my. I think it's Maddie's family that was for the plea deal. So I don't have any. Nobody knows what the individual constellation was in terms of the families, and ultimately it does come down to the prosecutor's choice whether they wish to accept the plea deal or not. Ultimately, the prosecutor is the one that has the case. They understand if they've got enough evidence that it's a slam dunk. They understand if they've got the kind of evidence that could end up with another Karen Reed situation. So I get all that. And that is not what is at the point of this that is so outrageous. What is so outrageous is that Bill Thompson's office treated these families like they were the enemy, like they were opponents, rather than following Idaho state law and treating them like a contributing member of the prosecution team, that they would be allowed a say, that they would be given the opportunity to express their opinions. And that is not the way this was handled. This man sent these 4 families letters on Monday and said, oh, yeah, by the way, we've accepted a plea deal. The families were not expecting this. They had no idea that there was even a plea deal in the offing. That's the point. Victims matter. And I know that there are judges that think they're God. And I know that there's prosecutors that play God. I know all that. But shouldn't we be at least honoring the sanctity of the law? If we're going to be part of this whole true crime community thing, shouldn't we honor all sides of the law? And there you go. Exactly. Don't think I wasn't talking to my husband in private going, this kind of looks like a false flag thing. This is kind of weird. How do you map out and plan the timing this way? Is anybody going to look in to see whether this Wes Rowley knew Bryan Kohberger? That's very odd. But hey, it's not my business, not my circus, not my monkeys, right? So my frustration, my anger, my indignation is about the way the families were treated. The fact that this prosecutor's office did not follow Idaho state law when it came to the victims. And that should matter. That should matter to someone. And instead, this was treated like they were God and that they didn't have to follow the rule of law. And when that starts happening, none of us are safe. None of us are safe if they start doing this. They did it, Texas Lassie. And when they did it, they sent the victims letters to tell them. They didn't even have the decency to call them on the telephone. It's hard to imagine the agony that these families are in. It's hard to, you just can't eat. I cannot imagine the feeling, the loss of perceived self-control, that not only have they had this delightful young adult stripped from their lives so violently, but the people that are supposed to be getting justice are treating them like they did wrong. That's the problem, Bill Thompson, that you treated at least two of these families, maybe not all four of them, but two of them at least were treated like they were in the wrong because they were not putting you, elevating you into the position of Lord God Almighty, Bill Thompson. You did not follow the Idaho law for victims' rights. You did not. That's the problem. Now, watch the weirdness in this courtroom. This is very strange stuff. Over Bill Thompson's, our right, his left, there is a small man sitting there with no hair on his head. It's a very shiny head, and he's got like a goatee or a beard or something. He's got facial hair. This is Brett Payne. This is the lead investigator for this nightmare. He also quit in the middle of this investigation as they were preparing for trial. He quit in April or May, so that he could take a job at the same university that destroyed evidence in this investigation. His investigation. He got a high-paying job at the university, the same university that tore down the house before the trial, because it was upsetting some of the students. They didn't seem to be upset that they were bothering the victims' families. You were worried about upsetting students. Were you worried about upsetting the victims' families, the people that actually lost their loved ones? Were you upset about that at all? Watch what happens in this courtroom. This is the weirdest reaction.
He did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared.
The state is prepared to offer to prove everything we say. Yeah, so why didn't we go forward with it? Because now the families never get any of this so-called proof. And they actually don't sound like they have much evidence at all.
Prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022. Excuse me. Ms. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
The prosecution is
Now,
that doesn't surprise me that he's emotional.
Whoops. Okay. So, I'm sorry for him, and I cannot imagine I can't imagine the level of responsibility that one would feel in this situation, in this position. But I wondered to myself, even though I have empathy for him and I'm very sad for him, and the attorney, the female attorney sitting beside him, she looks like the little kid that got her hand caught in a cookie jar and is terrified that someone is about to point the finger and show that she did it. She looks afraid of something. They look afraid. Why are they afraid? So weird. So while I have empathy for Bill Thompson, and I would never want to be in the position that he is in today. Never. I still think I would have erred on the side of the victims' families. I would have said, you are the ones that face the loss, not me. I didn't lose my loved ones. I've got my children. You guys suffered this loss. What do you want? What do you need to get out of this so that you will be able to move forth and heal? Because I think if you take that position, then I think that you have the ability to stand up in a courtroom as a district attorney, a prosecutor, and recite the names of the 4 people that were brutalized without crying. Not only did he weep, but look at the color of his face.
The defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022. Excuse me.
So this is where he starts to choke up.
Ms. Kohberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended.
Have you ever seen anybody under more duress? He has just gone through, put it in context. He has just gone through this whole crime. He's just gone through this whole crime. He's talked about Bryan Kohberger chasing Xana through the house. He's talked about the girl waking up and hearing the bedlam that was occurring. Did he choke up a single time as he's laying out the crime, as he's talking about the violence, the loss? No. Nope. Why now? Why does he start crying now? And please direct your attention to Brett Payne, the man who has been caught in a million lies on the stand, sitting back there with his coat collar popped like he's some kind of fraternity bro or a gangster. What's he doing sitting back with his collar all pulled up around his ears and he's kind of, bent down? Just keep an eye on these guys. This is, I never want to speak about this ever again. I don't want to watch the sentencing. I don't want to be exposed to the devastation of these 4 families after what these people have put them through. This is a gut-wrenching, soul-crushing process. What they did, what this group of people did to those 4 families, not what Bryan Kohberger did to them. He'll answer for that. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison for that. What about these people? What about these people denying them information on the investigation, stopping them from collaborating about what was happening, just keeping them informed? What about that? To get a letter that there's been a plea deal reached? A letter? Oh, yeah, and you've only got 36 hours to try and stop it. Why did they do this? They didn't have to do this. Look at her. Look at Bill Thompson, who is clearly in duress, clearly overwhelmed by whatever the unspoken words are. There is a process happening here that is not what we think we're doing. Somebody else is doing something, and you're going to find out. Brett Payne, and then the other investigator sitting beside Brett Payne. Just keep watching. It's a crazy
to
thing.
commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that is what resulted.
We don't know if he committed all the murders that night or that he planned to commit the murders, but we know that's what resulted. What? What did that mean? What are you talking about? Look at Brett Payne. I mean, first of all, the guy's sitting back there like he's like the son of Satan. He's sitting back there. The way he dresses and the facial hair, the way it's, cut. He looks like he ought to be like a Anton, the devil worshiper guy's, preacher or something. So weird. Just keep watching. So weird.
And that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Manny Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Colonel. Thank you.
Wow.
And thank you for saying their name.
The prosecution is...
Okay, now, honestly, Brett Payne and the other guy, they're like statues. They're unmoving. It's like they're holding their breath. It's like they're frozen in place, sitting up, right? Strong, sitting up, like arms clenched. Damn, Brett Payne's got his collar popped up around his neck like he thinks somebody's going to walk up and cut his neck for him. What's happening? Watch this. Keep an eye on Brett Payne and the other dude. Don't worry anymore about the young lady who looks terrified. Bill Thompson, who is in the middle of a mental breakdown. Look behind Bill Thompson. Just keep watching.
That doesn't surprise me that he's emotional reading the factual basis, but is
All right,
emotional
based
reading
on
factual
the
basis.
state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendants' explicit admission to committing these crimes.
Okay, Brett. So you're not already like protected enough with your coat up around your neck. You're pulling it tighter across your chest. You're making sure your tie and your button is there. You're pressing. What are you afraid of, Brett Payne?
Crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis.
Watch this.
Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2,
Watch.
murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
That's the change of plea.
Watch them.
The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges.
What is that? What is that? What is that?
Count 4,
Watch their body
the
language.
first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
That's the change of plea.
The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and
What'd they get away with? What did they get away with? They got away with something. They got away with something. What did they get away with? That's the question. Yeah, Anton LaVey. Yeah. It's just so dirty and awful and corrupt. It's just so, and I have to reiterate, I do think that Bryan did this. But what happened? What is this about? You get this feeling, right? I absolutely agree, reality wins. Yes. What is going on with Bill Thompson, these 2 investigators, the female attorney? What's going on here? There's something else. There's nothing normal about this. It's something else. Well, anyway, so it's done deal now. I know, DB, it's just terrible. And I will say this as well. I don't think that they had a great case, which surprised me. I kept saying they're going to have more, right? They're going to have more evidence or whatever. And it just sounds like they really didn't. They really just had what the limited amount that was, put into the arrest affidavit. Now, we saw the interviews that have been done. But let me ask you this. Don't you think the families, would have, don't you think they would have welcomed seeing the video of the guy driving like a bat out of hell, leaving the scene? Don't you think they would have welcomed that? So, on the one hand, the plea deal itself, I can't say that if that was someone that I loved, I can't say that I would not want the the plea deal. I can't say that. I don't know. But if the case was weak, if this law enforcement, if the investigation was flawed, then yeah, it's worth it to get the plea deal and not be exposed to decades of appeals. Although I would never be worried that he would be, that he would get out of jail early or anything. They don't let people like Bryan Kohberger out early, right? They don't do that on parole. They don't do that. But to have the guarantee, okay, I might choose that, legit. Again, the fear is, I don't like the way this Brett Payne behaves. I don't like the lies that he told. Bill Thompson was caught in a couple of lies. there's a lot about this that was really, really uncomfortable. And yet I do believe that they've got the right guy. One of the things that makes me think they have the right guy is that when we watch the video of the guy that comes running by the trash can in the middle, the early morning hours, I think that was Bryan. I think that was him. So I don't have issue with any of that. My issue, hands down, 100% across the board, is the welfare of these families, these 4 families. And they may not all agree. They may have had split ideas, but to notify them by a letter, to not include them and let them know that there was a plea deal being talked about and it was on the table. How do you even justify that? And again, they broke Idaho state law. And if I was Steve Goncalves, I would see if I didn't have some avenue to sue them for denying me my rights to have an input, at least an opinion about what was happening with my daughter's case or my son's case. So that's that. Okay, done. It is one of those cases that it is just so demoralizing and so the system victimized these families. That's my opinion only. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that I know more than anyone. No, me, one lone little person, I feel like they were not treated according to the letter of the law, and they should have been. And that's my position. And they need more prayers than you and I can answer up to heaven. I don't know how they come back from this. I don't know how they learn to live with it, especially after this prosecutor's office did not treat them with respect. So that's that. All right. So we are finished now with this. I did not make very many videos about this case because it was just too incendiary. There was so much of the trauma, surrounding it, and I don't like all the drama and stuff. And so I didn't really do a lot with it, other than sometimes some of the bigger news that came out. So I'm not going to comment any further. Even when they do their sentencing and all that, I won't be commenting on any of that. So this is it. As far as, my input, my opinion on Bryan Kohberger. And I, for one, am incredibly glad that he's going to prison. Do not pass go. Do not get your $200. He's done, right? He's finished. So that's it. That's that. And I don't know. I just feel super sad for the Goncalves family. I feel super sad for Xana Kernodle's dad. I just feel very sad for these families. Very, very, very sad. All right. The other thing that I'm going to be talking about, not today. Well, do I have time today? No, I don't think I have time today. Let me check my schedule, see what time I have to get back to work. 1 minute. Hold, please. Let me double check what time I got to be back. Takes a minute to get the no, I definitely won't be back today because I've only got 15 minutes. So I might be back later on tonight. Depends on how I feel. I won't be free again until like 6:30. So it probably won't be tonight. It'll probably be tomorrow, like early afternoon, early evening, like late afternoon. But the thing that I'm going to be talking about is Foodie Beauty in Syria. If you did not see my last video that I made with about Foodie Beauty, you got to go watch that. You won't believe it. You won't believe that there is a woman, a YouTube creator, a Canadian, who decided that she would just leave the safety of the Western world behind, and that she had to go follow her true love, her handsomest man, to Syria, Damascus to be specific. So even if you don't know who Foodie Beauty is, if you haven't been a part of any of the girl world kind of content, we got to talk about her, because this woman, a YouTube creator, has now put herself literally in danger of life and limb. She has moved to the most dangerous country on the globe. It's not even Damascus. Thank you, Kara. I just can't even wrap my head around. This woman is out of her mind. And there is no electricity. Their building does not have solar generators. And they don't have water. You know why, Foodie Beauty? Because you're living in a war zone. That's why, lady. You look like one of those women that signed up for sexual jihad. And I sure hope that I'm wrong about that. But I do have a video from, let me see the date of this video. Hold on, I'll pull it up. Take me just a second to get into my account. Just 1 second. Foodie Beauty. I made this video years ago. Let me see if I can find it. Show all. Where is it? Where are they? Okay. Where is she? Here it is. Okay, so I'll go ahead and show it. Just a minute. So I made this video. Let me see what the date was. 2 years ago. Truthfully, 2 years ago. Let me show y'all. Where I discussed Foodie Beauty getting hooked up with this man, a Syrian man who's living in Kuwait. He actually had, his family had like asylum from Syria, and they were living in Kuwait. And she picks up with him, and she falls in love, and so she has to go live with him in Kuwait. So that was 2 years ago, right here. 3,000 views, streamed 2 years ago. Okay. So this is the video. There she is. And of course, she's all about, oh, you know, y'all are so wrong. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. The Middle East is no different than Canada. I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. I'm safe. And then she ends up being under investigation in Kuwait, where she and her handsomest man had to flee the globe. She is an international wanted felon. Well, maybe not felon, but you get, we got to have some drama here, okay? This went from bad to worse. She runs away from Kuwait, where she is in fact wanted by the law. She goes to her home country, Canada. Her handsomest man, he doesn't even have anywhere that he can go to because he's Syrian. So he jumps on a plane with their cat, their Kuwaiti street cat, and goes back to Syria. Well, actually, that's kind of wrong. They fly into Lebanon, where they then proceed to take a car across the border into Syria. And then he rents himself a house that has no electricity, it has no water, it has no solar energy. And then on YouTube payday, she's got herself set up in an apartment in Canada. She gets herself a new kitty cat in Canada. She's nice and safe. She even got her an air conditioner. But on YouTube payday, he gets in touch with her and says, "Oh, Habibi, oh, I love you so much. You're very, very good. Please come to Syria. Come to me. Syria is so good. It's so very, very good." She proceeds then to dump the cat. She gets rid of the apartment. She spends 3 nights in a car. And then she gets on a damn airplane and flies to the Middle East, where she puts a Nakib on and goes across the border into war-torn Syria, where she is today, shining and glistening like a raindrop. And that's where she is. Even when she said on her live, "Don't worry, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go home to Canada." And do you know what Salah said? Salah laughs and he says, "How will you get home? How will you get home? You won't get home, Foodie Beauty, because you were a dumbass. You gave your passport to him as he required. And your talk about how he has so much money, bullshit. He's got your YouTube money and the cash that you walked across the border with. And if you think that these people, if you think that any of these people on YouTube, if you think that they believe a single word that you're spouting about how safe you are and how beautiful that Syria is and how great life is when it is 110 degrees and you don't have air conditioning or water, you are as delusional as the most crazy person in the streets of the United States. Nobody believes what you're saying, and you have jumped from the frying pan into the fire, Foodie Beauty. You are in trouble. There isn't a Western embassy open anywhere in Syria. There is no one to come for you, Foodie. There's no one to help you. It's incredible. It is incredible. So we are going to be talking about this situation. Oh my God, Martin Smallwood, you just can't even believe the mess that this lady has gotten herself into. It's just, yeah, the ATMs do not work anywhere in Syria, not even in Damascus, the capital city. The ATM doesn't work. So you know what she did, Martin? She got a bundle full of cash, American dollars, and came across the border, where she's now with her handsomest man in an apartment with no electricity, no solar energy, and no water. You know what they use? The cat litter. They're taking a box and filling it with sand, Martin. That's the cat litter for Julia. But she goes live in this war-torn country where there's no jobs, the bridges, the roads are busted up and broken up, and she shows a handful of cash on the camera. And I'm thinking, you have got to be the dumbest person in the world. Do you understand people are starving and you're advertising that you and Salah have cash in your apartment? What's wrong with you, I can't. It's the craziest story. The bread that they're eating, that's government bread. The government cooks it 2 or 3 days a week, and then it's given out as rations to the people because everybody's starving because there's no money. The first video that she did, she complained that she couldn't find Diet Pepsi. She complained that she couldn't find Diet Pepsi. And I was like, wait a minute, you're in a place where there is not very much food. There's nothing for anyone to eat. There's no McDonald's, or they're not going to give you Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. They're going to make sure that whatever food is available, that it is calorie rich. She's insane. She's crazy. Yeah, she's crazy. And I thought about that, Kara. They said it's 110. It's so hot. They went for a ride in the car because the car has air conditioning. Well, the gasoline, it's actually diesel, but the diesel is so dramatically inflated. The prices are so inflated that the government has to give subsidies on the prices. They left their long-haired cat locked up in an apartment when it's 110 degrees. It's going to be a miracle that cat's not dead when they finally get back from the desert or wherever they went. All right, I got to go. So we're going to continue the discussion of Foodie Beauty and her handsomest man in the beautiful upcoming metropolis of Damascus. It should be a hoot. And of course, we'll continue to cover the case of Barry Morphew and, his saga. Will he take a plea deal? I don't think so. All right. Is there proof she is really? Oh, yeah, she's there, Justice Jane. Yeah, she's there. When do we stop caring? You don't, because she's a human being. You can't stop caring because she is in danger. The chances that this ends in a real disaster is pretty high, greater than 50% chance. She's waving money around. She's obviously a Western woman, affluent, because she's got all that weight on her. And there are people starving, and she is exactly the kind of person that they want to kidnap to ransom. There is no help. There's no help. There's no police force. There's no embassy. The woman, I don't know. Yeah. So you don't stop caring. Like this is really scary. But even Salah laughed and said, "How will you leave?" Even she didn't hear. Well, she heard him, but she gave no indication that it was kind of ominous. He will not let her leave. She is the only money that he has. He's not going to let her leave. So he'll play the game as long as he can to try to have a peaceful home. Make no mistake about it, though. If she creates a dust up, he will teach her her place. He will do that. There is an interim government, but it is an Al-Qaeda member. Of course it is, Kara. The terrorists are in control in Syria. They ran Bashar al-Assad out on the rails. He was law and order. He was running a secular government. So when he was out, it's exactly what happened in Afghanistan, y'all. Exactly. Oh, Salah will make her stay, Kara. He is hungry. He is hungry. He has isolated himself from his family. He will die if he doesn't have Foodie Beauty. Never underestimate a person's drive self-survival. Never underestimate that. Never. He will stop her. All right. I gotta go. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, not today, because I'll be working late tonight. Then it'll be, time to maybe read a nice book tonight. All right. So thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it. And, I'm done with the Kohberger stuff. It's just heartbreaking. Talk to you later. Bye.